She leaned in, almost invisible, and whispered 7 words that could ruin or save a fortune. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe. The grand ballroom of the Imperial Grand Hotel shimmered under the soft glow of crystal chandeliers. The air was thick with anticipation, the kind that made even seasoned investors fidget in their tailored suits. At the center of it all stood Ethan Cross, the billionaire CEO whose reputation preceded him like a storm cloud. At 45, he had built Cross Tea Industries into a global empire. From renewable energy breakthroughs to cutting-edge pharmaceuticals, his name carried weight across continents. People admired him. Some feared him, many envied him, but all respected his precision, his unshakable certainty. Ethan adjusted his cufflinks and straightened his tie, feeling the familiar hum of adrenaline. Tonight was monumental. $100 million of joint venture with the European biotech firm was on the table. Every calculation, every word, every gesture mattered. Investors hovered at the edges of the room, champagne glasses in hand, eyes locked on him. The presentation behind him glowed, showcasing complex formulas and projections that would make most people's heads spin. Yet, despite the elegance and control, an almost imperceptible tension thrummed beneath his confident exterior. The deal wasn't just about money, it was about credibility. A single misstep, a tiny error in a formula, and decades of meticulous reputation could collapse like a house of cards. Ethan didn't just know it, he lived it. Precision was his sanctuary, and tonight, everything had to be perfect. As he spoke, every phrase measured, every pause calculated. A figure moved quietly across the room. Black apron, crisp white shirt, tray balanced with the ease of someone trained in multitasking. Her name was Clare Summers. Most people barely noticed her existence. She served, refilled glasses, smiled politely, and moved on. She was a waitress working double shifts, paying off student loans while keeping her dreams tucked away in the dusty corners of her memory. But tonight, something made her stop. As Claire walked past Ethan's chair to top off his sparkling water, her eyes flicked, almost instinctively, toward the formula scrawled on the whiteboard behind him. It wasn't just numbers and symbols to her. It was a language she once spoke fluently in a university laboratory, before life demanded sacrifices, before her father fell gravely ill, before she left the lab and exchanged pipettes for plates and flasks for trays. Something in her chest tightened. Something whispered urgently, "That's not right. That's dangerously wrong." Her hand froze for a heartbeat. She was just a waitress. She shouldn't speak. Not here. Not now. Not in a room where fortunes hung in the balance. But courage, quiet, stubborn courage, pushed her forward. Ethan was in the middle of a sentence, explaining the drug synthesis process projected to cure a rare neurological disorder. Investors leaned in, nodding, some scribbling notes, others adjusting glasses, completely absorbed in the billionaire's rhythm. The formula behind him was supposed to be the heart of the deal, the promise of life-saving innovation, a guarantee of returns. And it was wrong. Claire's voice barely rose above the hum of the room. "Sir, that's the wrong formula." The room froze. The words hung in the air, fragile but electrifying. Glasses paused mid-lift, conversation stilled. Heads turned, all eyes now locked on her, the waitress who had dared to interrupt a man whose decisions controlled millions. Ethan's gray eyes sharpened, slicing through the tension like a scalpel. He turned toward her with the weight of a man used to absolute control pressing down. "Excuse me?" His tone was precise, polite, yet undeniably commanding. Claire swallowed. She could feel every heartbeat. "The sequence. You've transposed 2 variables. It won't stabilize. The compound. Before replication, it will collapse. A ripple of nervous laughter echoed from one side of the table. An investor smirked, his tone dripping with sarcasm. Are we really taking scientific advice from the catering staff now? The Europeans exchanged puzzled glances, murmuring among themselves in broken English. One leaned forward, whispering to another, "Could this be true?" Ethan's pride flared, an old reflex threatening to override his judgment. His ego wanted to dismiss her instantly, to reclaim control, to show that no one, not a waitress, not a student, not anyone, could challenge him. But something about Claire's eyes stopped him. Steady, certain, unshaken. There was no hesitation there. Ethan's mind raced. He reran the calculation in his head, formula after formula, scenario after scenario. Then the undeniable truth hit him like a punch to the stomach. She was right. A single misplaced variable. In most contexts, trivial, but in the delicate world of biochemical synthesis, catastrophic. The room was still. Silence now carried more tension than any words could. Ethan placed the marker down, his hand gripping the podium edge. For the first time in a room of hundreds of eyes, he felt exposed, vulnerable, human. How do you know this? His voice was quieter, almost wary but firm. Claire straightened, holding her tray as if it were armor. I was a graduate student in biochemistry. I recognized the sequence. It won't hold. The investors shifted uncomfortably. A few leaned forward, whispering in low tones. The tension between respect and disbelief was palpable. Ethan's mind raced. Every instinct screamed to dismiss her, yet every rational calculation confirmed her correctness. Then something unusual happened. Ethan's lips curled into a slight smile, a rare crack in the armor of a man who controlled every outcome. He turned to the European delegation. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, his voice calm but carrying undeniable authority. "It appears we have been saved from disaster by someone far sharper than any of us combined." A soft chuckle escaped some corners of the room, tension easing fractionally, but the respect in the air was undeniable. This wasn't a gimmick or a lucky guess. It was clarity, courage, and intellect, combined in someone who shouldn't have been here at all. Ethan moved back to the whiteboard, Claire watching, her heart hammering in her chest. Carefully, deliberately, he corrected the formula. Numbers aligned, variables settled, stability achieved. The presentation continued. This time, flawless. The investors clapped lightly, visibly reassured. The deal, the colossal $100 million joint venture, was saved. Not by Ethan's brilliance alone, but by the courage of a waitress who dared to speak truth to power. As the formalities ended, champagne flowed, handshakes were exchanged, and polite congratulations circulated the room. Ethan lingered near the corner where Claire had paused, unsure whether to approach her. She looked small, almost swallowed by the grandeur of the ballroom, tray in hand, anticipating reprimand. Instead, Ethan extended a hand. "You saved me tonight," he said, voice low but sincere. "What's your name?" "Clare Summers," she replied, disbelief flickering across her face. "Claire," he repeated, warmth threading through the words. "I don't know what life pulled you away from, but brilliance like yours doesn't belong in the shadows. How would you like to join Cross Tea, not as a waitress, but as part of our research team?" Claire's eyes widened, tears threatening to spill. "Are you serious?" she whispered. "Deadly serious. I don't know how to disappoint you. No one who can outsmart me in front of $100 million should be serving trays." In that single moment, Claire's life transformed. The girl who had abandoned her dreams for duty was handed back her ambition, not through luck or inheritance, but through courage, intellect, and 7 words spoken at exactly the right time. But as she processed the offer, a nagging question lingered at the back of her mind. Why had Ethan not caught this mistake himself? And what would it mean for the man who had never been wrong before? The room had cheered. Glasses clinked. And yet, behind the smiles and polite applause, a storm was quietly brewing. Ethan Cross had always been in control. But tonight, someone else had altered the course of his empire, and the consequences were only just beginning. No one who outsmarts a billionaire should be serving trays. But Claire had no idea just how high the stakes really were. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe. The ballroom gradually emptied, leaving only Ethan and Claire near the edge, the hum of conversation fading like a distant tide. Ethan studied her carefully, noting the tension in her shoulders, the way her hands still gripped the tray as if it were a lifeline. Despite the chaos of the deal, she hadn't wavered once. "Claire," Ethan said, his tone softer now, almost private. "I need someone I can trust implicitly, someone who doesn't just know the formulas, but understands the consequences. I see that in you." Claire hesitated. Doubt flickered in her eyes. I don't know if I can. I left that life behind a long time ago. I was trying to do the right thing." Ethan smiled, a faint, genuine curve that rarely appeared on his usually guarded face. "And you did. That's exactly why I want you with us. Right now, we're not just dealing with numbers. We're talking about lives, breakthroughs, and sometimes survival." Her heart raced. The offer wasn't just an opportunity, it was a second chance. But the weight of stepping back into the world she had left behind pressed down. She glanced toward the whiteboard, now wiped clean, her mind replaying the moment she had whispered those words. "You could walk away," Ethan said, reading her hesitation, "but the world rarely gives second chances like this. You don't get to wait for permission. Sometimes you have to take it." Claire swallowed, her thoughts a whirlwind of fear, hope, and disbelief. I'll do it. I want to try." Ethan extended his hand again, this time not as an employer offering a job, but as a partner acknowledging courage. "Welcome to Cross T, Clare Summers." The following weeks were a whirlwind. Claire transitioned from serving tables to diving headfirst into the high-stakes world of biochemistry research and corporate strategy. The office was sleek, modern, and intimidating. Charts, molecular models, and complex simulations filled every corner. For someone who had traded beakers for trays, it was both exhilarating and overwhelming. Ethan, despite his brilliance, was a demanding mentor. He expected precision, foresight, and a relentless pursuit of excellence. Yet he treated Claire differently, not just as a team member, but as someone whose instincts could challenge even his own. Their dynamic was electric. Claire's past knowledge combined with her fresh perspective allowed her to catch errors and propose improvements that even seasoned scientists had overlooked. But not everyone welcomed her. Some colleagues bristled at her sudden rise from waitress to research strategist. Whispers trailed her in hallways, subtle doubts cast like shadows. Who does she think she is? She's just a temp who got lucky. Claire felt the sting but refused to falter. She remembered the ballroom, the weight of those eyes, the gravity of her whisper. Courage wasn't about comfort, it was about standing firm when the world doubted you. One afternoon, Ethan called her into his private office. The room was quiet, save for the soft ticking of an antique clock and the low hum of the city beyond the glass walls. "You've done well," Ethan began, eyes sharp yet contemplative. "But there's more at stake than you realize. That deal you saved, it wasn't just about money. There are competitors, insiders, and people who will exploit the smallest mistake. We're entering a phase where precision and intuition must coexist, and I want you by my side." Claire nodded, feeling both exhilaration and dread. "I'm ready," she said, though inside, a flicker of doubt lingered. Could she really step into a world she had left behind and survive? Her first real test came sooner than expected. During a late-night review session, she noticed something unusual in a batch of experimental data. Numbers didn't align. A subtle pattern suggested contamination, or worse, sabotage. Her pulse quickened. A single error could cost millions, perhaps lives, if this compound was released prematurely. "Ethan," she said, pointing at the monitor, "look at this. Someone's altered the replication sequence. If we proceed, the formula will fail in production." He leaned in, scanning the data. His expression was unreadable. Then, slowly, the corners of his mouth tightened. "Good catch. Very good catch. This could have been catastrophic." Claire felt a mix of pride and unease. The stakes were higher now. The game was no longer about formulas on a board. It was about corporate espionage, trust, and survival in a cutthroat world she had never fully imagined. Over the next few months, Claire became indispensable. She balanced the delicate art of corporate navigation with her scientific expertise, earning respect for most, envy from a few. Yet every success came with shadows, subtle threats, veiled warnings, and reminders that the higher you rise, the sharper the knives around you. Then came the night that would redefine her life once more. A private gala celebrating a smaller yet significant milestone for Cross T. Investors, media, and dignitaries gathered, the ballroom sparkling with elegance. Claire, now dressed professionally, no longer the timid waitress, moved with confidence, but always alert. Midway through the evening, an anonymous message appeared on her phone. "You're in too deep? Stop now or regret it." Her stomach dropped. She knew instinctively this wasn't idle threat. It was a warning from someone who wanted the company, the project, or perhaps even Ethan's empire for themselves. Ethan noticed her distraction and approached. "Claire." His voice was calm but authoritative. She handed him the phone, explaining the message without exaggeration. He read it, eyes narrowing. "They've noticed your value, and that makes you a target. But you've already proven courage. Don't let fear dictate your choices. You act with integrity. You act with precision. That's how you survive this world." Claire's hands shook slightly. The stakes had escalated beyond formulas and experiments. This was no longer academic or corporate. It was personal. Lives, reputations, empires, all intertwined. And now she was at the center. The weeks that followed tested every skill she possessed. Late nights, clandestine meetings, and confidential briefings became routine. Yet, through it all, Claire learned something vital. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the resolve to act despite it. One evening, after a grueling 16-hour day, Ethan summoned Claire to his office. The city lights glinted across the skyline as he closed the door behind her. "You've done more than save a deal," he said quietly. "You've changed the trajectory of this company. And you've changed me." Claire blinked, unsure how to respond. Ethan continued, softer now, more personal. "I've always trusted data, analysis, numbers. But you reminded me that intuition, courage, and heart are just as important. You've reminded me that brilliance can come from the most unexpected places." Claire felt a warmth she hadn't anticipated. pride, relief, and something deeper, a connection built not just on respect, but on shared understanding of risk, courage, and integrity. "Thank you," she whispered, "but I couldn't have done it alone. You gave me the chance to stand up again." Ethan smiled, the kind of smile reserved for rare moments of genuine recognition. "No, Claire, you gave yourself that chance. I only opened the door." Outside the window, the city stretched endlessly, a testament to ambition, risk, and opportunity. Inside, in that quiet office, two people who had started worlds apart, one a billionaire, the other a waitress, stood side by side, united by intellect, courage, and the understanding that the right words, spoken at the right moment, could change everything. As the night deepened, Claire realized that life was no longer about missed opportunities or abandoned dreams. It was about seizing the moment, speaking truth when it mattered most, and trusting that courage, quiet, steady courage, could open doors no one else could. And somewhere deep in her heart, she knew this was only the beginning. The formula was corrected, the deals secured, but the challenges ahead promised more intrigue, higher stakes, and tests of character none of them could yet foresee. For Clare Summers and Ethan Cross, the journey was far from over. Because in a world where power, intellect, and ambition collide, the next whisper, the next insight, could mean the difference between triumph and disaster.